The following is mostly an opinion based on my experience and getting a lot of advice from psychiatrists that deal with criminal psychology as well as ordinary psychotherapists. Manipulative, narcissistic people exist. They're called all sorts of other things, but we're going to call them manipulative people or narcissist or sociopath, any wording you want to use, because a lot of the different diagnoses have the same results. We're not talking about clinically analyzing a person to fix them. We're talking about the effect they have on people around them because they're wounded, damaged, or dangerous. We'll call them the wounded people here. We'll find or make a sore spot, like a wrestler will look for a weakness when you come in the ring, or make one and work on it, by repetition, in this case, of a keyword or a continually brought back up item. This is how to teach you to either appease them and or withhold your ability to appease them so that you can't do anything right. That's what you hear people say when they're in bad relationships. And or force you to disprove whatever it is. You should never assume that their assertions ever had merit, because for them it's simply a methodology and a mechanism to control and or manipulate people, and that's it. I'm doing this as a reference to a YouTube video by a Rust YouTuber named Shots, whose video today included talking about needing to walk on eggshells, which is the term that's normally used, and the repetition of the word fake, and the individual doing a drive-by comment where they create an asymmetrical communication by blocking you right after communicating with you, which is one of many red flag signs. Narcissism red flags include needing to walk on eggshells and knowing it, knowing that they have the right to go off the deep end and flip out on you. Some of them will also be accommodating both directions, but for them it's a power move to have total control. You want to look up the sunk cost fallacy. A person saying that a coincidence that happened must equal not a coincidence. You're doing something deliberately, and they will make it into something about them. If something happens in your life and they make it about them and then make it to where it's, anything negative that they can complain about, that's a giant red flag. Creating one-way communications by contacting you out of the blue, in this case, apparently, after many months of no contact, saying, I know you've been contacting somebody because they contacted me, therefore I'm going to go off on you. And I'm going to point out another little tidbit here about this kind of problem, and it's a real big one. These kind of people don't go the fuck away for years. They won't go away and leave you alone. They can't. Because they're compelled to. They need to have a safe space by having power over people. They'll do things like, don't you ever cross me or I can be a real bastard, that kind of stuff. And they can be male, female, doesn't matter the gender dynamic, it's not relevant. And a lot of you see people like this on the internet, especially in YouTube videos where people document them. Do not rent out space in your head. Now, I've dealt with this from a few people, and in both cases, the individuals wanted the right to be as abusive as is physically possible, physically and mentally and emotionally, and in public, being able to get away with absolutely anything with no consequences. And this is the problem. How do you deal with the person you care about, creating a gigantic problem for you and not dropping it? You can't deal with it. This is a very simple thing. So this is me being the person who's being screwed with. Number one, you keep using the word fake. Let's say that's the word, or a traitor, or whatever word they pick. They'll pick a word because they know it gets a response out of you. You keep using the word, you're forbidden from doing it for the rest of your life. I'm setting a limit, and you're going to follow it. If you don't follow it, we're not having any kind of contact. And then when, not if, you go through our mutual friends to fuck with me, I'll explain to them that they have to stop communicating with me entirely until you stop being a manipulative problem. The kind of person we're talking about likes creating drama in other people by pitting them against each other. That could also be what you're dealing with. There's hundreds of different things that the people will do that do this. And they will justify it by, I feel bad, therefore it must be someone else's fault, and I'm going to mess their life up. And no, there's nothing you can do to fix it. I can't do anything right is a battered woman syndrome problem that you'll hear about. There was no correct answer. Your papers are always no good. Papers, please equals abuse. It's all about having power. Whether the person ever fesses up to it is not relevant. And I want to point out something. You don't get permission from the bad guy by getting them to monologue that they did something bad and they confess to it. They don't. Nobody does that. That's in movies. We've all been taught in movies and TV shows and Marvel comics, the bad guy always says curses, foiled again, and monologues a bunch of crap. The only time I've ever seen anybody call out this trope, oddly enough, was The Incredibles. Oh, you got me monologuing. How clever. Because the stereotype is that people who are like this need to express it because that's their main manipulation method. Bring up a case from over a decade ago. Someone had decided that since this person had, since he had gone through something terrible, this is a completely unrelated person you never heard of, that everybody is presumed guilty until innocent. That's unacceptable, and I won't be friends with that person anymore, obviously. But back then I put up with them because they didn't express that. This was only told to me after we were already friends and gone through some crap. The closer you get to a person like this, the more rules are going to be showing up. And here's the method I do for this. We're not having contact anymore. Why? You have narcissistic personality disorder, and or you might also need to look up the expression hypervigilance. I don't know or care what you were diagnosed with. I don't have to put up with it because it always inevitably turns into abuse. This is our last conversation. I've only had to say that since this incident once. And the person became very upset. I'm like, yeah, I'm knocking the pins out from under you, and you will create an entire fantasy world that contains statements I never said and things that did not happen, and you won't let go of it for years. And this is the last thing I'm going to tell you. Someone turned you into this, or something in life did. You've turned yourself into a monster. Just like whoever did it to you was a monster. This is not how you solve a problem. How you solve a problem is to defeat the monster by not becoming it. A large portion of people who have these kind of problems are victims. I understand that. It doesn't matter. I'm a victim of abuse. If you abuse me, you will be a victim with no friend. You are not ever to do this, ever, under any conditions, in my presence, to anybody. And every accusation is a confession. Someone who talks smack about you behind your back will accuse you of doing that to them. Because that way they feel justified in doing this kind of stuff. And again, a very extreme version of this will pit people against each other while trying to maintain friendships with them, split them up, and keep them off balance. I went through a year or two of this with someone at one point, and another time went through several years of a person relapsing over and over again. And here's where I say something that's extremely unpopular and will get me canceled on the internet. It's not my job to be your psychotherapist or your group therapy person. Life isn't group, unless I choose to be part of it. I am not required to fix your problems. And if your problems result in you getting horribly angry with me, I don't ever have to talk to you again. You will walk on eggshells with me in only one way. The instant you feel like lashing out, you will stop and you will take this as an opportunity to adapt and change from the monster you've been turned into. I don't care if it's someone else's fault. You're dealing with it now. You will change into a person who doesn't do this by making yourself not do it. The first and last time it happens to me, we don't talk. Because in the past, this has escalated to death threats and assault. I don't have to do that. There's no reason to. This is a planet with billions of people, and we can all communicate with each other over the internet or in person. And I don't have to do this. And you don't have to do it either. And I don't want to hear that someone, well, he's a victim, we need to accommodate for him. No. No. The person who's most damaged has to adapt. If I'm going along with a broken leg and I'm trying to keep up with people, I can either say, give me the canteen and you go ahead and I'll take care of myself, or find a way to make it to where that bum leg doesn't affect anything. If it's a defect you carry, don't make it drag everyone down. The best you can. But that's ableism. I don't give a shit. We're talking about a person who physically assaulted me because of crap that happened to them when they were in grade school. I'm not at fault for this. I'm not the guy who bullied you. And accommodations don't have to go beyond a certain point. And that certain point is when my neck is risked. I understand everybody out there wanting to take care of their friend that's got some scrap, that had crap happen to them. But I am someone's friend, let's say. Am I going to maybe endanger them because I'm nearsighted? I have a physical defect with the eyes. They're bad focused. I have damage to the back of my brain. It affects my vision. Am I going to drive the car for them? I'm going to warn them ahead of time. I have a bunch of visual problems. When I'm wearing my glasses that are tuned for daylight or nighttime driving, I'm reasonably safe for driving. If I can't do that, I'm not driving the damn car unless you demand it. At which point I'm going to tell you, we're going to get in a wreck. Put on your safety belt, make sure we have airbags at work, turn them on, and let's see if we can get there. And I'm going to go slow like a granny, but we'll get there. If they're like laughing it off, they're demanding some disaster happen, and I'm not going to listen to it. Now, as far as the narcissism, or whatever you want to call it, red flags, there are hundreds of them. People who gaslight you. This is also what happened. The person I was dealing with decades ago did all of these things. And the screwed up part of this is there was another person who did almost identical things, just much more spread out and a lot less difficult to deal with. And that was the insidious part. That person had these problems intermittently because the medication would stop working. That's it. And yeah, it was med-based. And it's hypervigilance or paranoid schizophrenia or hypervigilance with narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, whatever names they got. That's a bunch of diagnoses we're not qualified to do. The effect is we get told that every damn thing we do and say is going to get analyzed and extrapolated to things that don't make any sense. This is the same mental problem that affects people who are chronic victims of conspiracy theory bullshit on the internet. They never look for the most likely outcome or understand that, yes, coincidences happen. Someone could contact you that hasn't contacted you in 10 years, and then you contact someone else and accuse them of being in league with them. It's still a coincidence. It doesn't matter if it makes you feel better that you can make it all about you and make it something negative so that you can lash out. That doesn't change whether it was a coincidence or not. An occurrence with me. I was asked by a person to repair a little MP3 player. I repaired it as best I could, and it worked for a few weeks, then it broke again. It was 5 years old. It's a coincidence that you fixed it and it broke, so it's a coincidence I fixed it and it worked. Twisting and flipping things doesn't work with me. I was in an emotionally vulnerable time. This individual sensed weakness and attacked me, but in that moment, this person sat there and had to explain why it worked at all. And then my statement was, I didn't get any money out of it. I fixed it for you so it would work for another X number of days or weeks or whatever it was. I forgot what timing it was. I did nothing wrong. I don't need to rent out space in my head for your accusations and try to process them. That's not my job in life. My job in life is to go through life as best I can. And you're getting in the way on purpose. You could simply decide that I fixed something and it didn't work, and if you given me money, demand the money back because it didn't last more than a month. I would have given the money back. But no, it turned into a litany of bizarre statements that have nothing to do with me. And the other thing you'll notice, these individuals condition, not train. They condition others not to contradict them when they're doing something that's obviously mentally unhinged. They surround themselves with people who won't call them on the bullshit. If you see somebody do this, look at everybody in the room and say, we all call them on it, or you're going to enable them, and I can't be around it. And you're going to have to make a decision to isolate yourself from these people, because they're all basically following this individual like cult leaders get a group following them. That's also a method cults use. It's also a method that political movements use, etc. This is all part of the game in the person's mind. So again, needing to walk on eggshells, every coincidence or occurrence has to be part of some grand evil outcome, one-way communications, and one-way ability to get away with shit. And no consequences. And the only consequence should be you're told never to do it again, and they can't. And that's it. They only get one shot. After that, no other shots. And the more they're isolated, I'm sorry, the worse they're going to get, but at least they're not lashing out at you or potentially trying to stab you. Let's not go there. Don't let yourself go there. Anyway, public service announcement about narcissists and other gaslighters. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.